I do want to say he was not convicted for killing the agents. He was convicted of aiding and abetting, and even the government has admitted they have no idea whether he killed the agents or not. So 1973, the highest per capita murder rate in the United States was the Sioux Indian Reservation. Over 70 democracy activists were murdered by the chief of tribal police, Dick Wilson, who called his police force the Goon Squad. The traditional women.
That's goons.
Yeah, guardians of Oglala Nation. But they were, you know, being sadistic puns. So the traditional women requested the American Indian Movement warriors to come in, and a cadre of men and women came in and set up a camp on the Jumping Bull Ranch. It was in this climate of murder and intimidation that an unmarked car drove onto the reservation one day. Two guys get out and they get long guns out of the back. In retrospect, it turns out they were FBI agents, and they claimed they were following a kid who had stolen some cowboy boots onto the reservation. Hardly a federal crime. They had 50 tribal police just off the Jumping Bull Ranch. And what most people suspect is that it was a diversion because the tribal police chief, Dick Wilson, was in Washington illegally signing away the uranium mining rights of the tribe. So a gunfight got started. No one knows how it got started. The tribal police fled. The FBI men were surrounded, they were wounded, and they were then executed. When they searched the bodies and they found out that they were FBI men, they were terrified. And the leadership knew what was coming, and they fled. And in fact, the reservation was taken over by government forces. They fired 100,000 rounds of ammunition. They stripped native elders naked. They broke down houses. They arrested 3 people for the crime, and they were acquitted by an all-white jury in South Dakota. And the government went crazy. So they got together and they stitched up all the loopholes in the case. And they did it by fabricating chains of evidence, by suborning witnesses, by filing false affidavits. And they went and they got Leonard. And when Leonard's trial was appealed...
So he was not part of the first three?
Not at all. He was not part of the 3 at all. They went after him. The Canadian government is still suing the United States for filing false affidavits which were responsible for his extradition. So they brought him down, they tried him, they made it look like an iron, bulletproof case against him, and they imprisoned him. At his appeal, the 8th Circuit Court of Appeals, a fellow named Judge Haney, wrote this list of 10 egregious errors in the trial, but said, my hands are tied, have to find him guilty. But he personally wrote to President Clinton asking for clemency for Leonard and said the FBI was culpable in this case. Judge Haney did that. So my argument is, since I was not there, I didn't witness it, I was told by people who were there that Leonard was minding the children. The man who actually executed the agents has admitted it. He spoke to author Peter Matheson. He was masked. He said, we were at war. I don't see why I should turn myself in, but I executed these people. This is what happened. So my argument is, since I wasn't there, since I can't personally certify that LEOnArd PELTieR didn't do this, I'm arguing that no American deserves a trial like this. That when the federal prosecutor, whose name was Crook, stood up several years ago and said the government has no idea who committed the murders, LEOnArd PELTieR should have been released. In 1996, the Democratic Party asked me to be a delegate. And I said, well, I'll do that if you'll give me an introduction to a deputy level or above in the Justice Department. So I went to the convention, and they like celebrities because they get the cameras. And so they introduced me to a deputy level, and I briefed him on the case. And he said, I'll have to get back to you. And he called me 2 days later, and he said, Mr. CoyOTE, I'm embarrassed to tell you this. When you spoke to me, I thought you were a wild-eyed radical. I'm embarrassed to tell you that everything you said is true, and all I'm at liberty to say to you is that there are some very powerful people who don't want LEOnArd PELTieR out of jail. And I said, would their initials be WW, meaning William Webster, head of the FBI? And he said, well, you said that. So I think he has been held vindictively, as the scapegoat for the deaths of 2 agents. That's terrible. It's unfortunate. What were they doing on the reservation? Driving into an armed camp. They were obviously preparing to spring a trap. These are high-stakes games. Leonard's aunt was run over and left dead on the side of the road. That's how he came there. Leonard was an urban Indian from Seattle. He's the guy that would fix everybody's car for nothing and make sure that people had something to eat. He's hardly a firebrand. And he's become the Nelson Mandela of the Native movement through his courage and growth in incarceration. I do want to say he was not convicted for killing the agents. He was convicted of aiding and abetting, and even the government has admitted they have no idea whether he killed the agents or not.